Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shan DeGore.
Hello, and welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today's episode is called Defending Your Business Against Scams. And I have with me Mr. Lane Montz, who is the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. Lane has modernized technology and public service systems, built ethics and consumer education programs for youth, seniors, and military, and guided the BBB through a generational transition of talent since taking over in 2022. Lane previously played a pivotal role as General Legal Counsel and Vice President of Operations for more than 20 years at the Kuzno Group. During that time, Kuzno produced over 29,000 projects of all shapes and sizes, initiated hurricane response teams, and started a government contracting division. Lane holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Cincinnati College of Business and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Toledo College of Law. Lane estimates he's resolved well over 1,800 legal business disputes in his 30 years as a lawyer, arbitrator, and a business person. So what you're going to hear is an interview with Mr. Lane Montz on location at the Better Business Bureau. Hello and welcome, Lane.
Hello, Dr. G. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I can't say enough how important what we're about to talk about today is to so many companies, because it seems like scams have really picked up to the point where it's even hard to tell the difference between like who you're talking to, and with AI, it's just gotten worse. But what are the most common scams you're seeing right now?
So businesses are getting bombarded. It used to be that consumers were the focus of scams, and they still are. But what we talked about, were households and seniors getting scammed. There's really, I think, a shift in the tone of scams and in the strategy of scams, and they are targeting businesses more and more. And of course, I think that's because businesses have more money than people do. Mm-hmm. And so businesses are seeing it. I see it every day in my email, right? There are probably three main areas that are a concern, but the biggest one is really getting emails, a staffer getting an email that seems like it's from the boss and saying, hey, we need to get a check right away to this vendor, or I just signed a contract and this is a down payment on this. And they're hoping the busyness of the press of business, they won't double check. And then they will click a link and pay something on a portal, and they will never see that money again. That's probably the biggest one, and the one that I think businesses should be most concerned about, especially small and medium-sized businesses.
So it doesn't matter if they're on the same network. It doesn't even matter that, correct? Or is it that, say, for example, you've got a number of contractors that are out there that are working for your business, and they're clicking on an email that happens to have your name on it, and it has a familiarity to it. Does it matter?
So really, it's changed a little bit. So we'll use the BBB as an example. If I was away, or even if I was, just in town at a lunch or something, one of my staffers might get an email that appears to be from me, or a text that appears to be from me, or voicemail now that even sounds like me, because I speak in public. They can copy my voice with urgency. Hey, and they can find out who works for me by going to our website. Mm-hmm. And so Stephanie or Christine or Amanda might get an email or a text or a voicemail with the urgent from me saying, hey, I'm down at the Seagate Center and we need to get them a deposit. Can you please immediately process this payment? And they click the link. And of course, that link is going to take them to a completely fraudulent portal. And it looks legitimate. And if you are busy, if you're a staffer that's busy, and if you have not set up a process inside your company to deal with things like this, you might catch them in a moment of weakness. We've had some BBB members that have paid $30,000, $40,000 to a scammer, and it's a small business, and it's often the office manager, and she calls up and she's crying. And, somehow they knew that the boss was on vacation or something. That can be determined from Facebook. It can be determined from, I'm out of the office on vacation, like an auto response. There are ways that scammers can figure that out, and they're doing a pretty good job of it.
So to me, this really gets to the heart of my next question, which is about AI. Because of your voice being mimicked, it sounds like AI is just taking it to another level where you might have been an individual who had some kind of level of discernment that you could figure this out because
Yeah.
maybe it was a robot voice, or they maybe even when you see an email and the punctuation isn't right, or things are out of order and it doesn't even flow like a normal sentence.
The grammar is good. The spelling is good. Documents look more and more official. But I think the big thing with AI, Dr. G, is it is allowing the scammers where before they might pick 5 or 10 businesses and do a little research and get their ducks in a row to perpetrate the scam. Now they're using AI and they can say, find every manufacturing company in these 12 counties and give me a spreadsheet with the CEO's name, the CPA's name, if and the AI can scrape that from the websites in about 3 minutes.
Wow.
And so it's expanding the efficiencies of scale. Now, we love efficiencies of scale for legitimate
Yes,
businesses.
we
Yeah,
do.
we love AI to help our marketing plans be more effective. But they have a marketing plan too,
Sure,
and it's a criminal marketing plan,
it is.
and they're becoming more effective. It used to be that you could more or less trust your gut instinct, like, "This doesn't sound like Lane. This Lane just doesn't do this," or, "It just doesn't feel right."
Mhm.
That is disappearing.
Mm.
And, yeah, I know at some point you're gonna say, "What can people do?" Right? And I'm gonna tell
Yes.
you that you're gonna have to move away from the smell test as your safety barrier and move into processes and educating your staff, having processes in place, educating your staff. Like, if you get an email from me asking us to spend money or telling you to send money anywhere, you call me on my cell phone, you text me on my cell phone, and you ask me the safety phrase. You got to do it ahead of time. It's going to be about processes and education. No matter how urgent it sounds, do not click the link and put a credit card number in there. Even if there's a video of me that I sent.
Also, even the videos. This is interesting because you're really talking about those, and they can be a pain, but those two-way factor.
Multi-factor authentication. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and so you see that, and I've even hesitated. I go, "Oh man, do I really want to do this? Am I going to remember my question so
Yeah.
I can get my answer right?"
Well, by the way, they're moving towards having a phrase like the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. That takes a long time to type, but it is far safer than peacock as your catchphrase, right? So
Mhm.
even that wouldn't stop this impersonation scam, impersonating the boss, impersonating the CFO. It's happening at big companies, but they have more resources to train the staff, and they're willing to devote more resources, and they have a technology team that sets that all up. Small and medium-sized businesses, one person, the wife or the aunt or the niece or the nephew, they might be handling all the accounting, and they probably shouldn't have access to spend money and to book money. Those are internal processes that all businesses should respect for accounting safety, but they do. That's just reality. So it's really going to be a situation where and it comes down to the CEO setting the tone here and saying, listen, we can't have this happen.
Well, I'm thinking of those now on a consumer side because there's consumers within these companies, and your behavior that you're using with your consumer side is probably going to roll into a workplace. So I'll give you an example. There used to be where you could think, okay, I'm going to use a certain card that I'm going to kind of restrict what money's come through it, and I'm gonna try to do my best to make sure. So even if I'm scammed, that I at least might be able to recoup my money. That's out the window now, isn't it?
Well, I mean, some people have certain cards that they use for certain kinds of transactions, and it acts a little bit like a stopgap.
Yes.
Backstop, I think is the better word. I think you can still do that. That's a weak process, though.
Mhm.
There's another process you can do. It is a pain in the butt, but I do it here because the BBB had a check stolen out of the postal mailbox about 3 years ago, and they turned it from a $50 check to a $5,000 check. We caught it, and the bank paid us money back, but the bank was out. So there is a banking program called Positive Pay, and Positive Pay gives someone in the organization, here at the BBB, it's me, the last clear chance to approve or disapprove of a transaction. So if it's a check, if it's an online payment, every morning I get a notification that I have Positive Pay items to review, and I have to log into the bank account, and I have to individually approve each transaction. Now that is a huge pain in the butt, particularly when I'm on vacation. However, we have not lost any money to scammers since that time.
Have you caught anything?
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. So
Oh, okay.
so I went to the bank after that $5,000 check incident, and I said, "What can we do?" And he
Mhm.
said, "Well, there is an option." He said, "But it takes effort." And so, a check, I might send a check to our cleaning service, right, for $428.16. And it takes a couple days for them to get it, and then they get it to the bank. When they put it in the bank, it'll eventually appear on my inbox for Positive Pay, and I can pull the check up and look at it, and I can say, pay it. So it's a last clear chance to approve money going out of the bank. And he'll tell me, and it's usually fine. Right after we started that, we caught a couple of transactions, small dollar transactions from a company that I didn't recognize the name out. It was out of the state of Washington. It was like one of them was like in the $30, and another one was like $172. And they were small amounts that they figure businesses aren't going to do a lot of investigation. And so I clicked deny, and they eventually stopped sending them to us. But I didn't even want to go back and look how many of those we'd paid in the prior 5 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to know, but it did stop it. It works, but it takes effort.
So for those listening that are either sole proprietors and maybe they've been working with a bookkeeper, or a relative that,
Yeah.
it's an extra step, but it may save you tens of thousands. I think of one incident where I was talking to a business owner and they lost
Yeah.
$27,000, and they thought they were doing a safe way of using the post office. But the post office, the bin that they threw it in, was compromised.
Yeah.
And then there was writing about redirecting this check and making the check more. They got refused to get their money back. So this is more, you have to understand, if someone can find a way, it's not like the 1 cent or a dollar testing. It goes beyond that.
Yeah, it's not two guys in a scam working out of their garage. These are now multinational organizations that are very sophisticated. And the general consensus on the postal stuff is that they do sadly have postal employees on the take. And so, yeah, the post office is pretty sure that they've got, it only takes one
Mhm,
in an area and they're pretty sure that they've got them on the so-called payroll to steal physical checks,
mhm.
and then they rewrite the check. But so that is the big. I think the big one, and the one that's most likely to get you for big money is, and then you need to sit down. You need to learn about the ways to protect against it, and then you need to sit down and have meetings with your staff. Anybody that could have the ability to order a check or to pay an invoice, or that an executive assistant, anybody that could feel a pressure point from an urgent communication from the so-called boss and wants to please the boss, that's a human risk right there. And you need to educate that staff about how to handle those.
That brings me to a question about training. So if you're talking about employees not knowing, what would you suggest? Would you suggest taking the time and professional development and do employee training specifically on scams?
So, first thing I would say is yes,
Mhm.
yes. And the second thing is there are very affordable programs. Know Before, KNOWBEFO. Yeah, Know Before. Two words crammed together. You can sign up, and it will send training to your staff on a regular basis, and they'll choose the topics. It's very good. It's very, very cost effective. But do not think that this is a one and done, right? Oh, we had our training and now we're good. Because staff has turnover, you turn over, you're busy, you're matriculating the new employee, you may or may not remember. So you just kind of have to turn it over to a technology-driven educational system. You can have a speaker come in. It's been proven that it's more effective just to have that little drip training every month. Something comes in, employees have to watch it, and they take a little quiz or whatever to make sure they retain it. You need to embrace it, because one and done is still subject to human error under pressure, and is subject to turnover and attrition, and it's easily forgotten.
I agree. I talk about any kind of training program that you're gonna do. The drip information, the reinforcement of information, because even in the emotional part, maybe the training was so fantastic, you remember, like, "This it made me feel great. Yeah,
Mhm.
I learned a lot from it," and then you ask them, "Well, what are the 5 things that you take away?" They're like, "I don't remember any." The further away from you get from that.
Oh, I've been to so many classes and seminars and training. I mean, a former lawyer, 24 hours a year, 12 or 24 hours a year. I don't even remember anymore, but a lot. And then you leave and you feel all supercharged about your new knowledge and what can you do with it. But then regular day-to-day life creeps in, and there are things right in front of you that you have to take care of.
Yes.
And so the idea is to make that training be one of those things that is periodically right in front of you
Mhm.
so that you take care of it.
And again, for those listeners out there, you've got to remember that preventing scams is not only a great thing for your company, it's a great thing for your employees to think about it because and ultimately your clients and customers, which brings me really to my last question on that is how can the businesses protect the customers they're working with? Because we've talked a lot about with internal with bosses,
Mhm.
but imagine you've got a customer who has gotten a communication from you and saying, "Oh, you didn't pay this bill, you're behind." And the client might even think, "Well, wait a minute, I shouldn't be. I thought I'm up to date," and maybe they don't check, but what is it that they can do?
There are so many flavors of that. It's hard to give a good answer because it depends on the industry and how you transact businesses with your customers. I can say a couple of things though. So if you're running a store, you're concerned about shoplifting and pilferage, right? If you're running a warehouse, you're concerned about pilferage, tools disappearing, whatever. And that's concern has been around for 100 years, and there are ways to learn how to address that. The scams now, because it's done electronically, if you're going to scam someone for $2,400, hey, why not just put an extra zero on there and scam them for 24,000? It only takes a half a second to do that. So the dollars at stake from cyber scams are much larger than the things that you take seriously, which is physical items disappearing.
Mhm.
So make sure you have the mentality that it's just as important or more important than the new socket set that you bought disappearing, right? It's more important. I have seen a lot of scams where they're looking at construction companies, and construction companies will brag about projects that are going on, and they should, right? That's part of what they do to show their value. Well, the scammers will look and see what projects are going on, or people will post things on Facebook. Hey, we're finally getting our kitchen remodeled.
Mm.
And if they have infiltrated the contractors, if they penetrated their database, right? They may do nothing with it for 3 years, but then they see an opportunity and they will contact the customer pretending to be the contractor and saying, "You owe us this payment for materials that we ordered." And then the customer pays it. I've seen it where it's gone on and it's gone on several payments,
Mm.
and the contractor is not getting their regular payments. Sometimes they've been compromised and their payments that attempt to be made to them are being stolen. So I just don't think there's any one silver bullet other than a commitment to accepting this is part of how business is today. Eternal vigilance is going to be the order of the day. And I just don't think that genie's going back in the bottle ever.
I agree with you. I and for if you feel you get a notification in the mail or you get something that says from your bank or a check. Actually have had someone actually call me and say, there's this large amount coming through. Do you approve it or not? And I have to think about
Hmm.
and go back and check, and I'm going to do it right then. So sometimes you do get those bank calls, but for whatever you do, do not provide any information over the phone that could compromise your birth date. I think those are things I remember, birth dates, and they want to ask for your license numbers. I mean, there's all kinds of besides your social security.
Well, they can get all that.
Hmm.
So I want to go back and answer your question more pointedly because you said, what can they do? I think if you have an ongoing customer relationship where the customer is going to be paying you more than once for services, whether it's a consultative type of relationship, you're not sure when you're going to get hired, but when you do, they're going to have to pay you, or whether it's an ongoing relationship, you need to understand that you have to have a verification process in place, and you need to talk with your customer and say, listen, when you get a request for us to pay, you need to call this number, right? And you need to ask them for a safe phrase. Papa's got a brand new bag, might be one, right? Yep. Yep. Yeah. Whatever you want, some lyric, some song, some little phrase that you can use to verify with each other.
Okay.
And you just have to do it. You cannot take automatic stuff for granted. I say that. I don't always take my own advice. If it's a customer I see all the time and I get the invoice and they have a little link to pay the portal, I do it because I have a history there.
Hmm.
But even so, I probably shouldn't. I probably shouldn't do that. And it's just, we're very busy. But I think you need to set the expectations from both directions.
Hmm.
This is how we're going to bill you. And you should verify this before you pay it. But, you need to call Michelle at the office and say, did you just send an invoice to me? Is this going to be legitimate?
Right.
And Michelle may need to do the same thing with her vendors.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think it's going to have to be that way. A little plus to that, Dr. G, is in this world where we've tried to automate everything, I think it will just cause a little bit of an uptick in personal connectivity.
Yes.
Why? That's not terrible, is it?
No, I'd so encourage that. Picking up the phone and calling someone, what a novel idea.
In the old days, when you needed to get something done at a company, you called up and Ethel answered the phone, and Ethel knew how to go walk down the hall and get all the things done that you needed to get done, and you
Yes.
trusted Ethel. And there might be a little bit of a return to that.
Okay. For those Ethels out there, get ready. You
Yeah.
might get a tap on the shoulder. I love that.
Both of them.
Yes.
Both of the Ethels out there.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to really hopefully help save some individuals and some companies out there from being scammed. This is important information. And I would encourage them to go out to the Better Business Bureau, be members, and because you provide information like this.
We do, and it doesn't matter. People think we just take calls from consumers, and we do, and we're happy to do that. However, that actually doesn't pay the light bill or pay the employees. It's the businesses' dues and their participation in our program that keeps us alive. And so we are more than happy to take a call or have a dispute between two members. Sometimes there is a dispute, and we like that. We want to grease the wheels of commerce and make things go smoothly. And we're happy to answer questions. Hey, businesses are consumers too.
Thank you so much, Lane. And we'd like to thank our listeners for catching the show and sharing it. We appreciate you, and we'd like to thank our sponsors, Ms. Shannon Rue, Principal Real Estate Advisor and Agent Development Coach. And also thank you to our sponsor, Ambrosia's Automotive, your #1 ranked auto repair partner. So until next time.
The Pen Leader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shan DeGore and brought to you by Mays & Associates Ltd., creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pen Leader podcast and share with others.